start. Good afternoon. Today is Wednesday, April 19th, 2023. The El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation is meeting in regular open session at 1:33 p.m. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
The flag of the United States
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3, public comment. Mr. Chair, no one signed up for regular open public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Item number 4, approve the minutes of the regular meeting on January 18th, 2023.
Did everybody get a copy of those minutes? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second? I'm sorry, I was looking at you, Jorge. Okay, all those in favor to approve those minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we're going to item number 12 now. Discussion on branding development and implementation options for EPATS LGC and all related facilities.
Before we go on, do we have our attorney? Is she online or are you the?
Good morning, Commissioner. My apologies. My name is Sergio Estrada, and I'm the newly retained legal counsel for the EPATS. I've been working very closely with Ms. Erica Rosales in transitioning, and today is my first day here as your legal counsel.
Okay, we appreciate it. We've been waiting a long time for you. Erica did a wonderful job to get us going, and I was going to try to sneak some words in before the attorney got here, but I'm sure glad you're here, and I'm sure the rest of the board feels the same way.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Very happy to be here.
Okay, Jorge, I'm sorry. Item 12, who's going to be addressing that?
I apologize.
Hello, LGC board. This is Marina Monsizais from Barracuda. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I guess without further ado, we'll get through my presentation and talk about your next steps. So here we go. Can I get the next slide, please? So just to level set, you all are a brand new entity. You are the EPATS LGC. You are a cooperative agreement of local governmental units. Currently, it's a unique partnership between the El Paso County, Horizon City, the city of San Elizario, and the village of Vinton. And together, through this LGC, you all plan to create this transit system that we're talking about. But it also opens you up to doing and embarking on other projects that, you know, benefit the folks from the LGC. So I wanted to make sure that, you know, we have a clear understanding, first of all, of who we are. It's important for me, and it's important. I know it's important for you all. You all formed this entity, so I'm sure you all feel good about it. Next slide, please. So currently, this is how you all function. I just wanted to give you all a visual. You have EPATS LGC, and your current project is the transit services. But who knows, right? I mean, you could potentially have other projects in the future. So the reason I wanted to show you this is to get you all to think with a growth mindset and to begin to embrace who you are as an entity, again, because you're brand new. Next slide, please. So the communication goals for the LGC, as we determine them, and I'm happy to hear some feedback here from you all, is to establish EPATS LGC as the umbrella organization for multimodal transportation services to serve, you know, the folks that are part of the LGC. Ultimately, you're doing it for the constituents that you represent. This also means you will need to develop a strong brand identity which comes in the form of a logo, established design standard for infrastructure projects. Your name, hopefully, if you do everything that you set out to do, will be associated with several projects. So we need to think now about how that's going to look to the community, to your writers, to your users, because we have this wonderful clean slate. So we want to make sure that when folks see a project from the LGC, that you can tell that visually. The LGC ultimately will need an online presence. Currently, that's not within our scope, but it's something for you all to think about. We will focus on the online presence for the transit system itself, because that's really what we're here to work on. We need to make sure that whatever communication plan we come up with or goals we come up with for EPATS LGC is done through an accessible and equitable lens. We have to think at the end of the day about who we're serving and how we communicate to them. And then also create a strategy with a growth mindset, because right now you have your first project underway, but who knows? I mean, if I'm being hopeful, I want bike trails. I don't know. You all can do all sorts of fun stuff. So, just thinking outside or thinking bigger than where you are now. Any questions, comments, concerns about these goals that we set out for you all today?
Marina, one of the things that I've been talking about, and now that we're starting to take a foothold, that we're starting to gain some momentum, that I'm certainly not an expert, and as we move forward, that maybe, I spoke to Betsy about this also, that maybe that we find the time, number one, whether it's 4 hours or whether it's one day, where we have some sort of strategic planning session that we have. We have great in-house experts, but I think that maybe what other counties have done this, and just take a listen and their failures, their successes. So something for us to be thinking about, that maybe we can line up some sort of session that we can all learn and move in a more organized manner. And also something for you, Marina, and the rest of the board and our staff to be looking at is that we start putting together our goals and our mission statement as we move forward. So a lot of things that are going to be happening, and as I was explaining to somebody just a while ago, if you see something that's going south or that you have an idea, there's no goal, there's no egos here. We're all about doing the best we can for this new corporation. And I know that we attended a meeting over at Clint, and Commissioner Holguin, thank you for being there and being so gracious as to introduce us to all the folks. But they seemed genuinely interested in joining LGC. So I know that we're going to be growing. I know that Socorro will be reconsidering where they're at now, and I think they will want a seat at a table. And I think one of the possible weaknesses is they weren't sure as how strong their one vote is. And I think we've reassured them that one vote is extremely strong and extremely important for us and for their community. So, Marina, sorry, I just wanted to insert that in as we start moving forward.
No, but I think this is exactly the time to start thinking about those things, because you need to think with that growth mindset. You need to, be ambitious about your goals, put them out there, right? And then make sure that your communications and how you're positioned out there visually starts to create trust with the folks that you serve, the folks that you represent. Hopefully, this opens up, funding opportunity streams for you all. And by having it together, by having those things that you said, you'd be well positioned to do that. So this is the time to do exactly what you were talking about, Commissioner Lim. Okay, next slide, please. So currently, this is how you're out there in the world. Currently, if you look at the transit system, it's called El Paso County Transportation, EPCT, and the colors that are out there are this purple and yellow, and this is your logo. Next slide.
Marina, before you leave that, Jose, are those our our colors. Is that the county colors?
Yes, Mr. Chair, and as a Phoenix Suns fan, it pains me that we chose LA Laker logo picture colors. But those are it, and then I think the presentation includes a visual of the wraps, which kind of follow a sunset ombre color scheme that were chosen by staff in coordination with our vendor to provide that, to capture some of the sunsets you see out, especially out in the rural areas in the county.
Okay, thank you.
So this is what you look like currently out in the world. So you have EPCT, you have the county seal, you have your bus shelters, and you have the wraps. Now, where you see that county seal, I'm going to challenge you to start seeing the LGC logo and LGC identity, because ultimately the LGC is the one that will be running this transit system. So just putting that out there for you all to think about. Now, we did come up with some options for you all as far as, the next steps to take. Next slide, please. Now, our recommendation, because we are starting fresh, because you have the opportunity to build trust with your riders, because you are a new entity that has the opportunity to make a splash and introduce yourself to the community, is to go with a full rebrand. So this would mean we create an LGC strategy with a growth mindset. So we're looking at both of them, right? We're looking at you together. We're looking at establishing LGC brand and brand standards, creating that strong brand identity, making sure that it's accessible and equitable, making sure that you have a solid communications plan so that you know how you will be communicating out to the community when it's time, and then of course create that online presence. Now, we're also with that recommending the full rebrand of EPCT, the transit service, or a new name. We could keep the current name, or this is the opportunity to change it all together. That's a big decision that we'll have to make together. We would do a new color scheme and brand guidelines. It would entail some costs. It would mean rewrapping the buses, and it may require changes to the bus shelters. And of course, we get to start your online presence from scratch. So that will follow whatever brand standards are built. And again, the reason we're suggesting this is because you have this one opportunity to come out of the gate as the LGC with this very important project. I understand that it's already out there and it's being adopted, et cetera, but if we're talking to the public, if we're trying to communicate to them that this is a new entity and here's what we're bringing to you, this would be the opportunity to do that. I have a second option for you, however, if we can go to the next slide. So the alternative option would be a logo update. We still need to, regardless of what decision you all decide, we need to create that EPETS LGC identity because you all are the umbrella organization. We would refresh the current EPCT logo. We would continue with the current color scheme. We would maintain the same EPCT name or possibly change the name, but everything would look and feel the same. We wouldn't need to rewrap the branded buses. We would be talking about very minor changes at that point. We were talking about, if the logo should be refreshed, we switch that out. You see it there on the door. The county seal would be exchanged for the LGC logo. Changes like that. That's really what it looks like. And then, of course, create the online presence for the transit system that is simple for the end user to utilize. So that's what I have for you today. I'm ready to hear your feedback.
Members, any questions? Or anybody from the audience that'd like to say any words in reference to what we just heard? No, absolutely. Commissioner?
Leon. I just wanted to lend my full support to this proposition of branding for EPATs. I think that it's incredibly important that the community know where this important initiative is coming from, that all of the entities are coming together to provide this very, very needed public transportation and transit system. So I think this is a wonderful idea. This is something that I've been wanting to see ever since we saw the beautiful bus shelters placed all throughout the county. I've felt that it's very important that our residents know where the funding for this program is coming from, that it is not only the county, but all of our partner entities as well. Jose mentioned the colors. What I think of when I'm not a sports fan, obviously, because what I think of when I see our shelters that I think are absolutely beautiful, but I think of Planet Fitness, right? Because they've got the purple and the yellow. And so in my mind, I'm like, wow, people are probably thinking Planet Fitness is funding all of these shelters, which of course we want our residents to know that these are their tax dollars at work. The county, of course, has been incredibly lucky to receive a lot of grant funding, but in the end, we're talking about public funds, and I think it's important for the residents to know that this is their transit system provided to them by their local governments. So I just wanted to lend my support to this item, and I'm very excited to see what Marina comes up with in terms of the logo and the branding. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you. One of the things that I'm excited about as we move forward is Horizon City, Socorro, Clint, Vinton, that they give us their ideas. The routes that we have right now, I don't know them as well, of course, as the staff does, but they may say, what if it went this corner or that corner? And somebody brought up something, I don't know if it was Clint or Socorro, that they have I don't know if that person is disabled, but they can't get to the
Yes.
bus stop. They don't know that there's also a service that'll pick them up and either take them to the bus someplace or to the next stop. So a lot of exciting things that really the public doesn't know and that we want to bring up. I know that I spoke about, and I'm going beyond, so Mr. Attorney, you if you want to stop me, you're not going to hurt my feelings, but during voting times that we provide some sort of service to get those voters out there and, just our part in helping up the voting percentages that we have, but a lot of possibilities out
A
there.
lot.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you all.
Commissioner, there's two virtual guests with their hands up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mr. Armijo is first.
Yes, thank you. This is David Armijo. I'm the Executive Director for the South Central Regional Transit District. We launched our bus service some 7 years ago with 5 buses and generic bus stops and a generic logo, which all got changed 2 years in. So that was 5 years ago. And so now we've expanded the fleet and carrying a lot more people and many more routes, 7 routes and on and so on. So I wanted to say that I think you're on the right track. I think it's great that you're spending the time on this. The logos, the color coordination, signage, everything you can do to put your moniker, your information out there so people can see it is critical. And don't even delete or lower the value of the bus stops. The bus stops and the ones that we're now installing are much better than what we had. They have information on them. Phone number, emails, websites, and so on. So, all those things are extremely important. It makes a difference. Our ridership has grown 6 out of 7 years that we've run it. Only the pandemic was a bad year for us. We're continuing to grow. I think you're on the right track. The more these conversations, the more that you can do on this level, the better. Again, if there's anything we can do to help, we'd be more than happy to lend a hand. Thank you.
Mr. Armijo, thank you. We appreciate that so much. And it's with input like you all are giving us, I think we are closer to our road to success than before. So appreciate your participation. Thank you. And I see that Mr. Cantu, welcome.
Yes, good afternoon. I also agree that this new rebranding is something that's much needed out here in our community to identify the difference between what is happening in El Paso and out here in this area. This is a very unique community the whole mission trail is amazing. That now we're actually able to get more services out here. So the rebranding will help as long as the information is there and the education for our constituents to be able to use the services. I just want to thank you for all the work you're doing, and I'm here to support you as well.
Well, thank you for those comments. I've got to tell you that, if you look at a business like UMC and how successful they've been over the past several years in rebranding all their buildings, and sometimes I go by a spot and I think to myself, I didn't know that UMC had a clinic here or this office here. So I think as we move into the future, I think it's going to go a long way if we stick to the same look over the next few years. So Marina, we're going to be looking at you a lot and maintaining that look. So thank you. And I think item 12, I would say, Jorge, is no action.
Yes, Mr. Chair, no action.
Are we going with the alternative option? Because from now until July, when we come to our next regular session, we'd like to hold what we would call working meetings, working sessions. And those working sessions can be from anybody that the board designates to have those meetings with Barracuda, but it cannot go more than 3 members, so we can't get it to quorum. And if you guys want to be a part of the working group, then we would have to call special session meetings for the next couple of months prior to July. But if you guys appoint, let's hypothetically say you appoint me to represent the county, and then somebody from Horizon for the first working group meeting, and then it could be somebody from the Village of Benton and San Elizario for the second working group, and then in July, Barracuda will come back with possibly like 3 mood boards and options to move forward based on your decision today.
Okay, maybe I didn't pay as much attention to it as I should have, but where are the, is it option 1 as compared to option 2?
Yes.
Let me look at this.
Miguel, can you bring up the Barracuda's presentation, or Reina?
It's
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah. So as I understand it, Mr. Chair, we have a full rebrand, and the rebrand's focused on 2 items. It's the agency, the local government corporation, having a developing of an identity for this agency. And as one of the previous slides that Marina presented included, there's potential for EPATs to start managing other initiatives. Right now, we're managing expansion of transit. The county maintains management of Vanpool and management of the Gold Route, which connects Las Cruces to West El Paso. But it's certainly possible in the future, the county could explore management of those service lines coming into the LGC. And so the LGC identity is not just buses and the way that we're thinking of what we're talking about today, but there's potential growth. And so the larger investment is to rebrand, develop an identity for this agency, and then rebrand one of our service lines, our first service line, which is the transit service that we have now. That would potentially mean modifying the shelters, putting a new color scheme, rewrapping the buses. So this is a brand new presence, kind of that clean slate that Marina described, that we have an opportunity. And then the second option is just updating the logo, creating an identity for the LGC, and then that really would potentially also rebrand the logo for the El Paso County Transit, which are both located on the buses. So there'd be minimal work to the fleet, potentially some work on maybe looking at seeing if it can be some work done on the shelters, but that would possibly be it. So those are the 2, I think, options before the board this afternoon. There is I know that internally at the county, we've been having some discussion about letting, as Commissioner Holguin mentioned, letting some of the residents recognize the collaborative effort that it took to get us to this place. And it's hard to tell that story on a logo alone on the side of a bus or even on the side of a facility. But I'm wondering if the shelters are a natural place for us to be able to, display the logos of the members of the different agencies, so that if you're getting on the bus in Horizon, you can see the Horizon City Council, you can see the Horizon Texas logo, seal, and know that, you know, the county and Horizon City have worked collaboratively. If you're getting on Socorro, you know that too. And I know that we have some boxes for route information within the shelters, and I'm wondering if that's a place for us to develop some sort of opportunity to tell our story about what the county does, what the LGC does, excuse me, and then, you know, kind of highlight the investment and maybe even have just some basic information on the transit system. And as that grows, if, you know, the city of Socorro joins, the town of Clint joins, we can modify that and make sure that everyone is represented. And then in every bus shelter that we have, you'll have an opportunity for residents to gain insight as to who is behind the LGC. And I think that complements what the LGC is, and it lets the LGC have its own identity. It lets the transit service have its own brand. It doesn't conflict with it. It just tells a story to our residents, so residents know that their local governments are working on their behalf and making these investments in critical transit services and other public assistance programs. So I wonder if that might be something to consider on the shelters as we move forward to kind of meet both wants to have a brand new system with a brand new logo, but then be able to kind of tell our history on how we got there.
So Jose, and Marina, so if we go with the full branding to incorporate what you just mentioned, would that fall into place with what you're thinking?
I think so. I think we have an opportunity, and we owe it to all the work that's gone into this process. You know, it goes back 7 years to really kind of start branding everything for the EPATs to have its identity, and then, you know, have a collaborative process, because the El Paso County Transit, even the name EPATs, right? Like, maybe it doesn't have to be EPATs. That was just a good government acronym, but it could be something else. I mean, those are all things that are on the table that we want users to know that they can rely on the system. So I think that the first option, the full rebrand, could occur, and then any modifications to the shelters might also capture some of our history that shows who the founding members are, who the members are, and what those agencies are, and, you know, all of that.
So with the full rebrand, you're saying you also want a different transit service name, right? So we always say this, maybe it's Sun City Transit. So it would be the new brand identity also for the LGC, but also we're doing a full rename for the system.
Yeah, well, I think based on what Marina mentioned, everything would be on the table, right? Maybe we'd keep, I think as the county, El Paso County Transit, we're fine with that. Horizon City may not be okay with that, right? Horizon's like, it should be Horizon City Transit.
Right.
Right? But something that speaks to the fact that what we're trying to do is a collaborative regional approach.
There's been, like, in other areas in transit, it would say DART, or it would say Collin County Transit brought to you by DART, right? So, and that's actually on the bus somewhere. And some of the buses are rewrapped differently because that funding is made available to kind of market your agency at the same time. So it could be Sun City Transit brought to you by EPATs, right? And then somebody's like, well, what's EPATs? And so then maybe they also go into wanting to see that. And not all the buses need to be wrapped that way, but that's also something we can get into later if you're looking to market both the agency and your system.
I think even the EPAT's name, it's very formal. It's
Yeah.
like the El Paso County Hospital District. So, Mr. Estrada, right, we could file paperwork to DBA something else.
Yes,
Right?
absolutely,
And
yes.
so if we wanted to have a cooler name that was a little bit more appealing, it could be El Paso Area Transportation, El Paso Area Transportation Services, LGC, DBA, something. And so I think even that identity is on the table,
Okay.
or should be on the table.
I just want to make sure that Marina has a clear way of coming back after the working sessions. Are we wanting to also show, out of the three options that they may show us in July, one is keeping the EPCT name, and then the other one would be two different names for the transit system entirely? And would one still be keeping the colors, and then she's offering two other options with new colors entirely?
Jose, I agree with you. I think we ought to come up with a cooler name and something that the folks throughout the county can identify with. And I think before we vote, I know that somebody in the audience wants to speak.
And through the chair, I'd like to make a comment. as
Oh,
well.
okay, I'm sorry. Just give us a second there.
I agree that we need to do a whole rebranding, and whether that includes a new name or just EPATs, I don't know what we'll decide at the end, but maybe we do a phased approach to the execution, so maybe we start with the bus shelters or start with the wrapping of the buses, and maybe, Marina, I don't know if you can fit that into your proposal, right, like to phase it out, what we start with first, what's the most cost-effective way of rolling it out. But I think it's important that we capture the collective work that's happening here.
That it's a team.
Right,
It's
correct.
not
So,
planning to do.
maybe we can have some cost savings in the initial years by just doing a small rewrap of the buses or certain parts of the buses and keep the same color scheme, but have a plan to roll out a completely new logo at some point in the future.
I think the most important part that we were thinking about was trying to kind of get ahead of the next phase of the passenger shelter construction. Because if you guys move towards a different color scheme, when these are coming in, we can actually order those based off of the new color scheme you choose. And then we would only need to retro repaint the ones that we've already erected, which are the 10. And that's less costly than having to do the entire system again if we do the color scheme at a later time.
What is your time frame for the next phase?
We would probably need your decision in July, which is why she's coming to give you those, like, what are the 3 options? How are we actually moving forward with the system? Rename, are we doing these colors? Are we keeping the colors? Because construction would begin when?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Construction hopefully will begin within the next 3 months. We are going to advertise hopefully by the end of May already, so it takes 2 months at the most to start working on the paperwork, but the contractor is in the notes that they have to provide a color palette for us to make the selection, because for those shelters, usually they take 4 to 6 months to deliver. So it will be priority for all of us to make already that decision by that time, because the worst thing that we can do is make a change order, because there will be additional cost. As well, we don't want to delay overall the project. So it will be priority for the board to make a decision on the color scheme to move forward.
So, Chair, legal counsel here, I just want to make clear with regards to how this item was posted today, it really is, it was posted as a discussion with no action. And the reason for that is it was meant to be a meeting where you all brainstormed and gave some feedback to Barracuda based on the presentation that they gave to you today. So when Reina said that, they needed your feedback, that's exactly what I think they need, feedback and guidance. But just to be clear, there is no formal action being taken today by the board. So you're not deciding for sure, or at least formally, over one course of action over the other. It's just meant to give feedback to Barracuda based on the presentation that you all received today. If they do need formal action from the board, we would need to come back to you at a later date.
Okay, Mr. Estrada, thank you. I like that. Okay, you're with the program here. Thank you. And I think it seems like we all agree on the color scheme. But as we move forward, I think we continue between now and, you said July, Daniel?
Yes,
or-
so there's going to be 2 working meetings between now and then, and so for that, we do need guidance on who you would want to attend those working meetings with Barracuda, and if you don't want those to happen just with 2 representatives from the LGC, then we would need to call those meetings to actual session.
Okay, then our staff and maybe one member of the council, anybody would like to hear?
I'm happy to participate.
Okay, then you've got your team.
Thank you.
But I think before we move out of this item, we have somebody to help us a little bit.
Good afternoon, Board. Carl Rimkus with Sun Metro. We're one of your ex officio members. So we just wanted to share with you as you have this discussion that I'm a member of a board that went through the same process about 6 or 7 years ago. do we just change our logo? Do we rebrand? Do we change our name? What happens? So I fully support and would recommend the full rebranding because you've already talked about your strategic plan, which is where you want to go. That's your long term. And in the long term, you do save money with that rebranding rather than the short term, and then you're going to have to go back a second bite at the apple to get the full plan anyway. And as part of the name change, what we did at our board is we identified our stakeholders. So everyone had input in what that name could be, the writers, the board members, different members of the public. So you really do have that collaborative with your media company here that can work through that process. Ours took about 8 weeks to turn around, so it just depends how aggressive you are. But you're definitely having the right discussion. And I think the rebranding is definitely probably your best option.
I think that's what I'm hearing so far. So as far as not taking a vote, but directions from the board to our staff, it'll be a representative from Horizon City and the staff. Anybody else from the audience wish to participate in this? No? Okay, so no action.
I believe Marina had her
Oh, I'm
hand raised
sorry.
earlier.
Marina?
I did have my hand up. I was just, thankful that, everybody in attendance or the folks in attendance see that long-term vision. Because at some point, if we do the short-term solution, you're going to be at this crossroads again. So you might as well do it right the first time, which is why we're making this recommendation.
Yeah, and I know you're right. I think that's very good advice. So thank you, Marina, for all the work that your team is doing. And I know that, matter of fact, when I passed by one of those shelters, matter of fact, when we were going over to Clint, they give me a certain amount of pride in it. And I know that as other municipalities join, they'll feel the same way. So thank you. Jorge?
Right now, are we ready to move forward? Okay. Item number 12, no action. Item number 5, approve and authorize the chair to sign the fiscal year 2023 administrative cost agreement for the El Paso Area Transportation Services Local Government Corporation between the EPATS LGC and the Rio Grande Council of Governments.
Okay, so we actually need a vote on this one, Jorge?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 6, discuss and take appropriate action on City of Socorro joining EPATS LGC.
Jose, were you going to take this item?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So, good afternoon. Just wanted to provide the board with an update. Staff has been meeting with and presenting information to the Socorro City Council at last week's City Council meeting. The City Council raised some concerns about some of the items within the agreement, and so the county staff is going to be working on meeting with the City Council to go through those and hopefully bring those agreements back very quickly. If we're able to work through some of those in our evaluation of some of the comments and some of the concerns, I think we need to as an agency, do a better job of providing some of the context associated with those concerns to them so that we can ensure that we can mitigate any concerns they have, explain what the process is for them. But we're excited to be able to work with their council and with their staff on addressing all of those. And so at this time, there's no formal action being requested from the board, but I did want to provide that. I know that maybe take this as an opportunity to introduce Mr. McElroy. Michael McElroy is the county's new Director of Planning and Development, robust municipal experience at the City of El Paso, and a huge asset for the planning department. And so he and his team, including the transit staff, will be working with the City of Socorro over the next several weeks to address that. And so I think we're evaluating whether or not there'll be a need to come back with a special, to request a special meeting to approve this so that we can seat the board member, perhaps maybe even receive an update on the rebranding as well. So that might be a little bit ahead of our next regularly scheduled meeting, but that'll be coming down the line here soon. And I also know that we have Representative Reyes with Socorro City Council in attendance today as well.
Welcome, Mr. Reyes. Did you want to say anything? You're welcome to say a few words at the podium.
At the podium, please.
The mic has to catch your comments.
Good afternoon, Ruben Reyes, the City of Socorro at-large representative. Thank you for the invite. I know we had a couple of concerns, many concerns, I should say, and I think we just gotta work every single small details. We got a couple of questions. I know it's a little difficult for staff, for you guys to go to council meetings and discuss and answer all our questions. We got staff. We're trying to work all together so everything comes out perfect. And for something that we can go and tell our constituents, the reason why we're spending X amount of money. And again, thank you. And I think it's a good thing that you guys are doing.
Councilman Reyes, thank you for being here, and I've got to tell you, you have every right to put the brakes on it until you and the council really understand everything, all the ins and outs, and all the benefits for Socorro and the county. So I know that we had some conversations. Thank you, Reina, for being there that night, and I think as we move forward, just let us know when it might be on your not the next agenda, but whenever you see that it's going back on, let us know so we can be there. But in the meantime, that any information you need, as you can see, we stand ready to help.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So no action on this item?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Okay, item number 6, no action. Item number 7, approve and authorize the chair to sign the interlocal public service transit agreements between El Paso Area Transportation Services, Local Government Corporation, and El Paso County, Horizon City, City of San Elizario, City of Socorro, and the Village of Vinton.
Okay, thank you. Jorge, any discussion?
Chair, legal here. I just wanted to let you know that staff had asked me to inform you and the board that they're also recommending no action on item number 7. I agree with that recommendation based on some of the feedback that we've received from some of the member entities with regard to the transit agreements. I do think that we need to give them all an opportunity to give us some of their feedback and questions and the issues that they want to discuss further. You've mentioned City of Socorro, but we've also just recently received some questions from City of Horizon. So really, there's no purpose in approving any of the agreements at this time. I do believe that I should inform you that the Village of Vinton approved their transit agreement, but it's my recommendation that we wait until we have an agreement that everyone agrees to and that that looks the same for all of the member entities. So there's no action on item number 7 as well. Or that's the recommendation from staff.
Can I also interject? I apologize, but if we want to have these contribution agreements spoken about, but there's also that matter of, getting the funding into the LGC for the other services that we have approved. We just did the COG, and Mr. Sergio has been working. So we want to get the funding into the LGC as soon as possible. So I would also request a special session meeting. So that's up to you guys if you want to do it later in May or maybe in early June. But I was looking at the calendar, and I think I'm looking towards like May 24th or May 31st.
Okay,
Or
then,
where's Memorial Day is the 29th? So the 24th or the 31st of May? Would that give everybody enough time to do? Okay.
members, I think we ought to take our council's advice, then we'll just wait until you have make contact with all the entities, then you'll let us know so we can have it at our next meeting.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, Commissioner.
So no action for
Mr. Chair,
item.
actually, I had one question. With regard to working through some of the comments of the City of Socorro, what is the timeline that we anticipate Socorro being able to take action?
We're coordinating to meet with them, so I'm hoping that we can make that coordination next week, if not that first week of May. And then I remember at their last council meeting that they mentioned they were bringing this again to their June 1st council meeting. I believe that's what it was. So that's our time frame, at least with the City of Socorro.
So then in that instance, we would approve the agreement ahead of The city of Socorro?
Yes.
Okay. And I just think it's incumbent on staff and Mr. Estrada, if you can make sure that you provide assistance in this, and that concessions made to any agency are consistently made across all the agreements. I don't want one agency to have more of a leg up. As congruent as these agreements can be, the better, right? And so
Right.
even if Vincent is already approved, I think it's incumbent on us to allow them the opportunity, as you described, to go back and revise the agreement consistent with any further modifications that we make in any of the conversations with Socorro, Horizon City. So I know that as the bylaws and articles of incorporation were being developed, once we got to a point where everyone was in agreement with most of the items in the agreements, I believe legal counsel collectively worked together to just ensure that they were all consistent. And I think that's going to be important for us. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I have one question. The amounts that are in the agreements now, will those be adjusted if Socorro does join? Or
What
how
I
will that
can,
work?
yeah, what I can say is that when the agreement with the COG was made, they're going to do reconciliations at the end of the year. So even if that's the amount that we put in right now, and then they'll do, maybe, I'm assuming by August, they'll say, based off of what we spent these past 4 or 5 months, we can project to spend this much by September. And let's hypothetically say you guys had to put in 15K, but you only spent 5,000 from that, but then your fiscal year 24 contribution amount is 20K, then you would just put the 10, right? Because you still have 10 in there, so you would just need to come up with that difference from your contribution amount for fiscal year 24.
So hearing that, we'll have no action on this item.
Okay, no action for item 7. Item 8, Mr. Chair, there's been a change to the agenda language to read the following. Approve and make recommendation to El Paso County Transit to offer a promotional free fare for Ozone Action Days as determined by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, TCEQ, from May 1st, 2023 through October 31st, 2023, as well as free fare for Earth Day on April 22nd, 2023.
Good afternoon. This item is being brought to you on behalf of El Paso County staff. So we want to start with what is an Ozone Action Day. And Ozone Action Days are declared on hot, sunny, still days when conditions are most favorable for the accumulation of unhealthy levels of ground level ozone. And this can often occur in El Paso where temperatures in the summer can reach well above 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Forecasts are made 1 day in advance by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. And so we can advise our transit service provider to allow for all routes to be free to the public, excluding Route 84 since that's ran by Sun Metro. And then so we have what are the effects of ozone pollution. So high concentrations of ozone can be harmful to people who already experience medical issues such as asthma and can lead others to develop respiratory breathing problems. Additionally, ozone is harmful to plant life and reduces crop yields and kills trees. The El Paso ozone forecasting season always begins May 1st and concludes on October 31st. So ground level ozone is created by chemical reactions between nitrogen oxide and volatile organic compounds. Emissions from motor vehicle exhaust and gasoline vapors are contributors of ground level ozone creation. So over the past 5 years, El Paso is averaging about 27 ozone action days a year. And in 2022, we experienced 29 ozone action days if we had honored the ozone action days promotion last summer. If you recall, we had free rides for the entire summer, so this wasn't a formal request. So if we would have honored those, it would have accounted for an estimated fare revenue loss of $10,800 for 2022. And if we use the average days of 27 at $374 a day, we can estimate a fare revenue loss of about $10,098 this year if we approve this proposed promotion. And fare revenue loss is used towards our operating costs. And so the example you see here is if June's invoice for operations is $100,000, fare revenue was $10,000, then the operational cost is $90,000. So in this sense, we'd be just covering the full cost of operations on those days.
So Reina, tell me again the actual ozone action days that were just quoted a while ago.
So the ozone action days, we're averaging 27 a year, but they're called on any given day where the ozone levels reach that threshold. And it's declared by the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality the day before. And so we get those notifications via email, and then we would just, relay the information to our transit provider to provide free fares the following day.
Okay, so it's, we don't know what those exact days are as we speak? Okay.
It's just based off of the temperature and how the air quality is working together at that time.
Any discussions?
We're still almost, we're
okay.
It's okay, there's still just a little bit more. So then we also have what is Earth Day and why do we celebrate it? And the first Earth Day was celebrated in 1970 when a U.S. Senator from Wisconsin organized a national demonstration to raise awareness about environmental issues. Rallies took place all over the country, and by the end of the year, the U.S. government had created the Environmental Protection Agency. So we honor this day is to honor the achievements of the environmental movement and to raise awareness of the need to protect Earth's natural resources. So we believe by offering free fares on Ozone Action Days, along with a free fare on Earth Day, we can contribute in reducing the number of trips people will take in their personal vehicles, which also reduces the need to refuel or the opportunity to remain idle in a car for the sake of cool air from air conditioning, all of which is beneficial to our environment and to the health of the people that live in it. We're asking for your favorable consideration to approve these promotions.
Board, any discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think the practical issue is that the notification for an Ozone Action Day comes the day before. The idea is that you'll see it on TxDOT highways, on the message boards, today's an Ozone Action Day, which is ironic because if you're having an Ozone Action Day, you're supposed to consider not driving. And if you're seeing it, I see them every day during the summer when I'm in my car. So I don't disagree with the idea of promoting transit service on days, especially in the summer where we have a lot of volatility with temperature and air quality. But to me, it seems like if we really wanted to let people know, we could follow the county's cue from last year and provide a promotional fare or no fare period throughout the entire summer, beginning in Memorial Day and then ending in Labor Day, perhaps. And we can consider doing that for just children under the age of 18. It's popular with transit providers. There's been a collective growing movement to just not charge fares or minimize the amount of fares for services like transit. And so I'm of the belief that if we're serious about trying to improve air quality with our system, letting people know that for these months, if they want to, this is an option and it's free, that will really actually promote and incentivize someone to make the choice to ride transit as opposed to, I saw it on the news by chance, I just don't think that a rider, it's going to benefit the people who are riding. It's not going to necessarily provide that incentive for someone to say, let me take the bus today as opposed to riding in my own vehicle.
Yeah, because it seems like it's too, from one day to the other, hey, it's an action day, I better take the bus. So can you sort of boil it down to a motion?
And can I suggest, sorry, Jose, can we still honor this request for the month of May? Because Ozone Action Days have actually come out starting in April, even though the forecast season is May to October. I have never seen one called in October. There's usually some in September that end up being called, but by the time October comes, we don't really have that issue. So even if we do the free summer fare, how you're saying from from Memorial Day to Labor Day, I would still want your approval for the May Ozone Action Day. And we notify them via Facebook, our Facebook page, and then just as they enter our bus system, the drivers let them know, hey, you don't have to pay today, and that would just be at least for the month of May.
On the agenda, it reads May 1st through October 31st.
Correct, but I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Landeros would like to do the free summer again promo.
Right.
Okay, so my question is how do we make a motion to include what you've just said and Mr. Landeros' recommendation?
I think perhaps the motion would be to approve and adopt the recommendation from El Paso County Transit staff for the county transit system to offer a promotional free fare for Ozone Action Days as determined by TCEQ from May 1st, 2023 through October 31st, 2023. So make that motion, we can come back in with a second motion as well.
Earth Day as well?
And Earth Day on April
That's-
22nd,
That's this Saturday,
2023. 22nd, 20th?
22nd.
Okay, so that's included in your motion?
Yes.
And Earth Day again, so we can be very clear for the record.
Earth Day, April 22nd, 2023.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
I don't know if we, Mr. Estrada, are posted it to consider taking, if we could take action to do a promotional fare for the entire summer, the way that the item's posted today.
No, sir, we can't. If I understood what you were proposing, that's, too far away or different from what was posted. So they would have to post that for a future meeting.
So when we do the special session on the 24th, if we could add that item?
Yes.
For a promotional fare for the summer?
Okay.
And then the analysis that you all provided about loss of fare box revenue is helpful as well.
Okay, so Jose, you want to redo your motion for?
No, so I
what's
think
on
the
the
motion,
agenda?
we
With the-
approved what staff was recommending with that motion, and then we can come back in a few weeks, next month, and then consider the promotional fare for the entire summer.
Okay, so we're okay.
We're okay, yeah. So,
Okay, thank you.
although you mentioned that there's already Ozone Action Days.
Sometimes they start in May. I've seen some even be declared in April, but we normally just ask for the actual Ozone Action Day
Forecasting
forecast season. And so if we are able to hold that May 24th meeting, it's still prior to your
Memorial
suggested.
Day.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, reports, presentations, and discussion. Item number 9, presentation from the Far West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordinating Committee regarding the approved Texas Department of Transportation 2022 through 2026 regional plan for the following counties: El Paso, Hudspeth, Culberson, Presidio, Jeff Davis, and Brewster.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good afternoon. Commissioner Leon, members of the board, good afternoon. My name is Javier Bañales. I'm a member of the board of the West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordination Committee. With me today is Celia Garcia. She is the Chief Operating Officer at Amistad for the social service programs. The genesis of this committee, the West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordinating Committee, goes back to the 1990 signing of the American with Disabilities Act by President George W. Bush. So this is something that's been in the works for almost 30 years now. The American with Disabilities Act mandated that reasonable accommodations be provided to elderly persons and persons with disabilities. However, even after it was signed in 1990, advocates of these populations noted that there was a disconnect between transportation service providers and social services. Too often, transportation service providers simply looked at transporting a person from point A to point B, and that was it. Social service agencies, on the other hand, were looking at providing direct services to individuals that they were serving or providing services to. And again, the disconnect as to coordinating the transportation for persons with disabilities, elderly persons, was something that was still missing. And so it was determined that there was a need for transportation service providers to communicate and collaborate with social service agencies that serve these populations, again, elderly and persons with disabilities. In 2003, the Texas legislature required the coordination of public transportation services funded with federal, state, and local services. And so this as early as 2003, the state legislature was 1 year ahead of the federal government, because in 2004, the federal government called for the reduction of duplication of federal-funded transportation services and expanding access to transportation service providers to elderly, persons with disability, low-income persons, and others. Eventually, for example, veterans came into this category, or specifically mentioned into this category. And in 2005, the federal government, the Federal Transportation Bill passed by Congress, called for the establishment of locally developed coordinated public transportation and human service transportation plans. So this was a mandate from the federal government that Congress passed it with the Transportation Act of that year. In 2006, TxDOT contracted with local agencies to develop a regional coordination plan for each of the Texas's 24 state planning regions. In 2006, and I went on. In 2006, El Paso County, Area Agency on Aging, and Amistad, a local 501c3 agency, came together to establish WETEP, or the West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordinating Committee. WETEP for short, just simply West Texas El Paso. And the El Paso County became the lead and fiscal agent in 2006. So for the next 11 years, El Paso County coordinated the development of the coordination of the Regional Planning Committee. And it was during this period that three regional plans were done, 3 5-year plans, one from about 2007 to 2012, then the next 5 years, and the next 5 years. In 2017, Amistad became the lead and fiscal agent to continue the implementation of the Transportation Regional Planning Committee. In 2022, just last year, Texas approved the regional plan for 2022 through 2026. So this is a little bit of a background as to the development of this committee. These are the planning regions that TxDOT uses throughout the state of Presidio and Brewster. And so, of course, about 96% of the population is in El Paso, so the majority of the activities, the majority of the meetings are held here, although we certainly take into account the input and participation by members from the rural counties. The purpose is that statewide coordination of public transportation was established, and a lot of these are state-directed mandates. One, to eliminate waste in the provision of public transportation services, to generate efficiencies that will permit increased levels of service, and to further the state's effort to reduce air pollution. These are pretty much the same for all the 24 regions, but they're built into all the regional plannings that are done throughout the state. The Texas Department of Transportation, through their Public Transportation Division, is responsible for monitoring, guiding, and funding the work of WETEP, the West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Planning Committee. And so, of course, why regional planning? Why do we need to have this? Well, this is a plan for more efficient and effective network of public transportation services. It identifies resources to get people to desired destinations. It is to have communities come together to develop a 5-year plan, 5-year transportation and human services plan, to identify inventories of transportation resources available within the various regions, and to complete comprehensive needs assessments and gap analysis within those regions. The mission for WETEP is to promote collaboration between transportation providers and health and human service organizations so that persons served experience an improved quality of life. And the vision statement is that persons within West Texas El Paso will have access to social services that include customer-centered, dependable, and convenient transportation. I distributed a copy of the 2022 to 26 regional plan, and the plan has 5 goals. The first goal is to implement the regional plan. And of course, then there are about 5 or 6 operating objectives that address how the plan is going to be implemented. The second goal is to promote collaboration resulting in continued and improved services to persons served. This is an important goal because one of the operating objectives here addresses the function that WETEP plays in funding services and funding requests for proposals that are submitted by entities within the region. For example, Funding for one of the categories that's called Section 5310 is to fund services for transportation for persons with elderly persons and persons with disabilities. The funding, of course, comes from the federal government, and the Metropolitan Planning Organization is the entity that is involved in approving the funding requests that are distributed to within the regions. But WETEP, the West Texas El Paso Regional Planning Transportation Coordinating Committee, is the entity that the MPO has asked to review the proposals for funding before they reach the MPO. And the reason they do that is because the MPO is interested in knowing whether the requests for funding are within the scope of the regional plan. And so, of course, the 27, 28 operating objectives that are within the plan are the operating objectives that any entity that is seeking funding to provide services to elderly and persons with disability, they have to make sure that what they're seeking funding for comes within one of those, is addressed within one of those operating objectives. Otherwise, then the request for funding is outside the scope of the regional plan. And again, this goes back to that whole process of coordinating and ensuring that services are provided in a cohesive manner, addressing the needs that are identified within the region. So, for example, in this case, WETEP provides feedback to the MPO, letting them know that this particular request for funding is within the scope, and then the MPO uses that information to approve or not to approve the funding request for funding. This has been used, in fact, the County of El Paso, the State of El Paso, Amistad, some of the agencies have received funding from Section 5310, again, services to elderly and persons with disabilities used in this process. Goal 3 addresses filling gaps in services through identification and assessment of change in mobility needs. Goal 4, maintain broad public knowledge of transit and social services throughout the 6-county region. And in fact, what we're doing today is within goal number 4. It is one of the objectives. It is operating objective 4 of this particular goal. And what we're doing is going to different policymakers within the region, within the 6-county region, to inform them about the work of WETEP and share with the entities. We've gone before the County of El Paso, will be before the City of El Paso, the Council of Governments, Metropolitan Planning Organization, City of Socorro. So we've done about 7 presentations like this. We've got about 2 or 3 more scheduled over the next couple of weeks. And number 5 is to promote efforts to maximize technical assistance and training to member agencies. So the contents of the regional plan. 1, it includes empirical data. I don't think this particular screen is here. That's okay. It includes empirical data from various sources. So in putting together the regional plan, we didn't just grab it, out of thin air. We did a lot of research. There's a lot of information that we gathered from TTI, Texas Transit Institute, TTI, and from the Metropolitan Planning Organization, from the County of El Paso. County did an extensive study a few years ago. We took that data. And so data from all these different reports that have been done are incorporated and integrated into the report. There are the results of surveys that we did about 2 years ago as part of the gathering of data for the regional plan. And the surveys are included in the appendix so that people can see the specific surveys that were distributed. The results of those services are also integrated into the operating objectives of the plan. We took input from policymakers. In Chapter 1, pages 11 through 20, you'll see a section that has the photos and a little bit of a summary of data that we obtained from policymakers. There were about 16 policymakers. There were 2 county commissioners, the mayor of Vinton, the mayor of Socorro, the county commissioner from one of the rural counties. We also took input from the executive director of the COG, of the Metropolitan Planning Organization, some of the directors of some of the social service agencies. Again, this is on Chapter 1, pages 11 through 20, and you'll see the names of the photos of the individuals that we're talking about. There's also a section on Chapter 3 that has the gap analysis, what we found as gaps that exist within the region in the area of transportation. Chapter 8 is an important one because that's where we have the performance measures. That is, how are we going to evaluate the services that are being provided by the member agencies of WETEP? And so this is an area, this is something that we submitted, of course, to TxDOT. TxDOT gave us some feedback. In fact, the Metropolitan Planning Organization was one of the agencies that provided extensive feedback to us as we finalized the section on the performance measures. And their input is integrated into the final reports that you've seen. Then on Chapter 1, pages 40 to 67, is the planning sessions that were held during the period that we were completing this particular report. There are copies of agendas, copies of minutes that outline the details, the planning sessions, the committee meetings that met, the development of the various committees and planning and the development of the operating objectives, so that it's documented and it's there for future reference. And Chapter 9 has the vehicle inventories of all transportation providers, the county, San Metro, Amistad, the MVV, some of the other smaller entities within the 6-county region. This is important because this is something that was being done statewide, because TxDOT was interested in finding out what are all the transportation inventories within the state of Texas. This is important should there be an emergency, a natural disaster, a hurricane, or anything where there's a need to bring together all the transportation resources to provide the services to move individuals from one place to another.
On our next slide, of course, you all can see in 2019, we had a transportation summit. It was, of course, a pretty big event, and it involved panel discussions. There was information provided to public and other attendees. There was, of course, general public attendees. Of course, we participated in public meetings. The welcome address was done by the county commissioner. And of course, there was participation by the TxDOT upper management. Of course, here you all can see Eric Gleason, the executive director of the TxDOT division, who awards funding to entities that meet TxDOT's goals of eliminating waste in providing transportation services. It improves efficiencies and it furthers efforts to reduce air pollution. There was over 75 attendees. And of course, we reported on regional plans status up to that date. There was new stakeholders that were welcomed, and of course, as I mentioned, our keynote speaker, which was Eric Gleason. And the 2021 Transportation Summit, unfortunately, was canceled because of the pandemic, but we are planning for one in 2024, of course, hopefully to join again together. Now that face-to-face meetings are back in more practice, of course. Here you all can see just a picture and some of the entities that participated. DaVita Dialysis, Amistad, AmeriGroup, 211 Texas, and of course HHS Region 10. And of course additional City of Socorro, City of El Paso, San Metro, Big Bend Community Action, the County of El Paso, and of course Amistad. So this, of course, is just a partial list of all of the members and affiliates of the WETEP committee. There's always some that come on board, others that don't participate as much, but it is always open for anyone that does want to come in and be a part of this collaboration. You all can see, of course, Big Bend Community Action, City of Socorro. There's quite a variety of agencies, social service agencies, and transportation providers. Here, of course, are their logos. And next one. And of course, this is our 2022 officers and our steering committee members. Our chair, of course, Victor Reta from the City of Socorro. Our vice chair, Ms. Yvette Lugo from the Area Agency on Aging. Our secretary, Ms. Tita Nunez from Big Bend Community Action. Lourdes Torres, our New Mexico Family Services. Of course, Mr. Bañales from Amistad. Astrid Bunner from San Metro, City of El Paso. David Armijo, South Central New Mexico. So our WETEP meetings, we do them at least 4 times a year on a quarterly basis. During the initial portions of the planning process of the regional plan, there were more monthly meetings. Of course, now we've scaled back a bit, so it's more on a quarterly basis or every other month as needed. Of course, the steering committee meets also as needed to plan agenda items and discuss relevant topics. They are now held in our boardroom at 3210 Dyer at Amistad,
but we always provide that virtual option, right? Just as we have now, the new way of doing things after the pandemic, which is very convenient for a lot of our members. And of course, special meetings are held as needed. Of course, you all can always visit our WeTip website, which is through our Amistad website. You can see it on the top banner. You click on WeTip, and of course, you're able to see a lot of the information that we're providing to you all today, to include a downloadable version of that regional plan, so that you all can, of course, see it electronically. We also invite any of you who would like to have us do a presentation. Of course, it is part of our goals and objectives to inform our community. And of course, that collaboration between social service agencies and transportation providers is extremely, extremely important when addressing, the population that we serve, which of course is older adults and persons with disabilities. I'll leave some final comments to Mr. Bañanes.
Well, only if there are any questions that anybody has. We made the presentation several times, and as I said, Commissioner, this is the third time I think you've heard it, but we have the regional plans available for any individual that might want to get a copy. And again, as Celia mentioned, we can make this presentation also at any other time. Any other questions?
Yeah, one, Mr. Chair.
And as we move forward, that's one of the things I really appreciate you coming to our meetings. And I think that the board, you may have different feelings, but I think we need to be talking to each other, and me especially, learning from your experience and the direction that we can be taking.
Of course, certainly.
Yeah, I actually would echo that, and would ask what the process is for the LGC to be one of your partner agencies. Obviously, the county is involved in that, and the county has its own interest. As those interests evolve, Socorro is there, but Horizon, Vinton, San Elizario aren't there, and so the LGC can help be that voice,
Sure.
and so.
It would be getting a formal letter simply saying that this particular entity is interested in becoming a member of the West Texas El Paso Regional Transportation Coordinating Committee.
Right.
We go to our board. Our board is going to be meeting in May 24th, I think. And so we will have a meeting, and that would be one of the business items that will be presented and approved, and then we would add it to the list of member agencies. We report the list of member agencies to TxDOT because that's one of the things that we're monitored with. We have, as you saw in the list, there's approximately 25 to 30 entities. It's gone up sometimes in the mid-30s. It comes down a little bit when there's changes in some of the agencies, and it takes a while sometimes for the new administration to become thoroughly familiar with the role and then participating.
I think we have a lot to learn from each other and collaborate. And so if we can get that letter, and then depending on the board's action, perhaps we can also place an item on the 24th special session agenda. It sounds like it's going to happen more and more as we go through this meeting to allow the board to consider appointing a representative from the LGC. Yeah.
I was just going to suggest that if the representative from the LGC would probably maybe be our COG administrator. Is that a thing, or you guys are wanting maybe a director to actually be appointed? Because we do attend these meetings already
From the
as
county.
yes, as representative of the counties.
I would envision it probably being a member of the board, a director.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Mr. Bañanes, let me ask you, is there a cost associated with us being part of you?
No, not at all. The funding for operating or providing services is provided through a grant from TxDOT. It's a small grant. It only allows for about 8 or 9 hours of administrative time by the agency to do the coordination, the management, and so it's a very small amount. And we have to actually submit a proposal to TxDOT to be approved to be the lead agency.
And as we have more members joining us, we'll assure that if it's voted in, that we do participate, and that we have one of our members attend your meetings.
That would be great.
Okay, well, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
presentation.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Great.
Thank you.
Do you want us to keep, or do you want them back? No, whatever you say. I mean, yeah, let's get, I'll give them back to you so you don't spend so much money printing. Yeah.
These were actually paid through a grant from TxDOT.
Okay.
Item number 10, presentation from the Texas A&M Transportation Institute for Task Order 2 of Paso County Urban and Rural Reporting Financial Analysis.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jimmy Cardenas, and I'm a researcher with the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, TTI. And today I'll be giving an update on the results of our research project, or our project that we had looking at urban and rural reporting and doing a financial analysis. So next slide, please. So just taking a step back, we have on this slide the project purpose and the project task. But from a high level, we're looking at two sources of revenue for EPATS. It's federal and state revenue. And those sources are formula funds, which means that the service that EPATS provides directly feed into the formula that determine the amount of revenue coming in. So that's the overall project purpose, to see what would change, what would be the net impact if EPATS, which currently reports all service to the rural NTD, and NTD stands for the National Transit Database, which is a part of FTA, the Federal Transit Administration. A lot of acronyms, I know. But every year, all transit agencies are required to report service. This service then gets put into the formula funding at FTA. So the difference here would be if EPATS started reporting the service that actually serves the urban area and started reporting that to the urban entity and seeing what the net difference is. So this involved a scan of the new infrastructure bill, the IIJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It also involved looking at how that would be sub-allocated. Right now, that funding goes to Sun Metro as a designated recipient. Task 3 will look at the service allocation analysis and then a financial analysis. Now, then I'll go into a little bit more detail in the following slides. Next slide, please. Oh, hold on. There we go. Okay, here we go. So this is just a snapshot of a typical year for EPAT sources of revenue. Some of this may be a little hard to see, but the top green slices, state revenue is about 6%. Federal 5311, which is the rural funding, grant funding, is about 27%. Other sources of revenue are things like fare box revenue from riders, local contributions. Some years there is CMAQ funding from MPO. Other years there are additional federal grants for capital improvements, etc. So these make up the total revenue pie, if you will, on any given year. Next slide, please. So this analysis is focusing on this third of the pie, that essentially those revenue sources for state, rural, and federal 5311, which make about 33%. And this does not include additional funding from Section 5307, which is reserved for urban area funds. So that would be an additional piece of the pie. So we're going to look at how that changes, what would be the net impact, in other words, for reporting that data to the urban entity. Next slide, please. So some project highlights. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act scan, the takeaway from that, there's about a 30% increase in federal grant funding for both rural and urban areas. So that's a great thing to see that large increase. For the funding suballocation, it's determined that Sun Metro, according to their SEP, which stands for Service Expansion Policy, the way that they would suballocate funds would be based on urban area population within each transportation provider's service area, respectively. So Sun Metro, of course, would be the city of El Paso's boundary. So the urban area population that falls in there. Everything outside would be allocated to EPATs. So, and I'll discuss that in a little bit more detail, but the bottom line is that about 18% of that would, of funding that currently goes to Sun Metro would be sub-allocated to EPATs. And we'll go into a little bit more detail on that. Service allocation, of course, this is important because in addition to finding out how that money would be sub-allocated to EPATs, it's also important to see how the big picture revenue would change with the additional service reported. So we did an analysis including service from EPATs reported at the federal level and doing the formula calculation along with Sun Metro's service, New Mexico's service, and South Central RTD service, which they currently report right now. So about 70% of service on average would be able to report to the urban NTD. And then finally, the financial analysis is taking those parts and forecasting for potential changes in the funding for the 5307, that's the urban area, section 5311, the rural area, and the state rural funding. So taking a look at the funding sub-allocation, there are some assumptions that we have to take. So essentially looking at EPATs, we are including the unincorporated areas of El Paso County within the projected El Paso urbanized area. And I want to stop for a second here because it's important to note that we did use the projected urbanized area for El Paso. At the time that we were doing this analysis in 2022, last year, the new geographies for urban areas had not come out yet. They are out now, and that came out this past January. So this project was using actual population at the block level. So that was current population 2020 census. So real population numbers, but the geography for urban areas was a projected geography, predicted from the Texas Demographic Center. And that was that's what we used for this analysis in lieu of the awaited for new geographies. So in addition, the following incorporated areas that lie within the projected El Paso urbanized area, we use the current member cities, as well as Anthony, Socorro, and Clint. So we made that assumption to use their incorporated urbanized population as well. And for Sun Metro, of course, that just includes the city of El Paso's incorporated areas and the urban population within that boundary. The next slide, please. So here is the essentially how the population shakes down. And that's where we see in the very top on the last column for percentage, we see that 17.9%. If you just total all of the population below that EPATS line, you see Anthony, Clint, Horizon City, etc. Those populations would total to that 17.9% of population, of urbanized area population. The remaining 82.1% lies within the city of El Paso. And using, again, the projected geography for the urban area, that gave us a total population number of 795,000. The actual projected number, the actual correct number from the census is about 823,000. So that's the difference that we were working with. So next slide, please.
I had a question here on this. Just wanted you to clarify that difference. Yes. That difference you mentioned, that 823 versus that 795 figure. The difference of about what 28,000. That is population that lives solely in a rural area, not in the urbanized area.
So that's the difference in total urban population from our projected number versus the actual number. So, but for your question though, the question would have to be answered through an analysis to see exactly where those that population lies. If that makes sense. It would have to be mapped out and we'd have to do a GIS analysis, which we did for this methodology to see where those actual boundaries touch and what population numbers are different. So it's not an easy question to know whether that additional 28,000 would be it would be in the urban area, yes, but we don't know whether to assign that to the city of El Paso or to the other outlying jurisdictions or unincorporated areas without doing another analysis.
So I guess my question is rooted in trying to understand if it's an accurate statement to state that, about 9% of the population in El Paso County is in the unincorporated area, or if that is solely in the urbanized portion of the unincorporated area, which then leads me to the 28,000. Like, where are those individuals? Are those individuals out of the urbanized area? I would presume so, but I mean, short of an analysis, right? That's what I'm trying to get at. I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit.
Just by looking at the actual geography, there are some areas where census came out, essentially some differences that the Texas Demographic Center did not anticipate. There's a couple of changes to the census methodology and determining the geographies of urban areas this year. So for example, I think you may be correct in some of that population may lie in the unincorporated areas within the county. But for example, just off the top of my head and not doing an analysis, that some urban areas that were urban prior, areas over Horizon City, for example, are no longer urban in the 2020 geography. So this would have an impact on how these numbers shape up. But I think, overall, we wouldn't anticipate a large shift or a large difference in the proportion of urban area populations assigned to EPATs versus the urban area population assigned to City of El Paso for Sun Metro.
Okay, thank you so much.
So for the service allocation, this is just some of the data that we used. This is data that FTA uses for their formula funding. It includes your annual revenue, vehicle miles by route, annual total vehicle miles by route as well. That 4 shouldn't be there. But we used 2019 data. That's what it was for. So we wanted a data in fiscal year or FY29 that represented a normal year, aside from 2020, 2021, which were abnormal in terms of service. So 2019 is actually still used by TxDOT to calculate state rural funding. And it was used by FTA as well for the last FY23 allocations and it's, I think the next year they'll start using the updated FY22 data again. But that's why we went with 2019 for this data as well. And again, this is important because the data that we use here and submit to the FTA formula funding changes the overall funding that gets allocated to the El Paso urbanized area, which is what we want to see. Okay, so after looking and getting that data, about 70%, again, service data would be eligible to be reported to the urban NTD, and running that through the formula along with the service that's already reported, again, by Sun Metro, New Mexico DOT, and South Central RTD, we get the results, what we see here. So scenario 1 is, in parentheses, you see rural only. And this is essentially the do-nothing scenario, right? EPATS is still reporting all of their data on the rural side, so they're reporting to the rural NTD, as well as all of their data is going to TxDOT for state rural funding. So in this scenario, we would see $0 from the urban side of from FTA. Now, using the FY23 apportionment, Sun Metro would receive about 18 million. New Mexico State would receive about 710,000, and that gives us a total of about 18.7 million for the El Paso urban area, both Texas and New Mexico. So in scenario 2 involves what we were trying to accomplish in terms of submitting that service data and that additional data to the FTA and seeing how that shakes out at the end. So I want to point your attention to the total. Overall, we have a 14.3% increase in total funding to the El Paso urbanized area. So that new total comes to about 21.45 million, in addition of 2.6 or $2.7 million coming into the El Paso urban area. So with that additional money, that pot going to, now we would look at the portion going to Texas, because New Mexico's amount would stay the same, or it would change with in proportion to the overall pot. But looking at the Texas only portion, that's where we're going to see our 18% and 82% breakdown, right? So that's where we see EPAT's portion at $3.69 million coming from 5307 money. And then you'll see Sun Metro, the other 82% of that funding. So their portion would come out to $16.9 million. So their portion would change, it would decrease by 6.2% from the first scenario that they would normally receive. And of course, EPATS would get a total new part, a new part of the pie, if you will, Section 5307, which currently EPATS does not receive. So the final net results show what would happen on the other side, right? The initial two pies we started out, the state rural funding and the Section 5311 rural funding. So those would decrease, but they wouldn't decrease by a lot. So the projected or forecasted Section 5311 rural funding would decrease by about 130,000. That's about 4.6% decrease. And the state rural funding would decrease by about 6,000 or 1.3%. So if we total the differences and look at the net outcome, we're looking at an additional $3.5 million coming in, to EPATS. So it's over 100% difference from what is currently scenario one, the rural only, just reporting service data to the rural NTD and to TxDOT.
Could I ask one question on the slide?
Yes.
So just to kind of make sure that I'm understanding this. So currently, I know you're referring it to as EPATS, but effectively it's the Paso County Rural Transit District. We only report data to the National Transit Database for non-urbanized funding. And so scenario one only shows us receiving and capturing federal and state funding from that. And scenario two is the analysis that you all have run for us, showing what the estimated amount of funding that we could draw down would be, but there would be a slight reduction in non-urbanized funding, which I think was the question that staff had to initiate the study, right?
Correct.
If we start to secure urban funding, are we going to just end up losing the non-urban funding, in which case it doesn't make sense to do that? But your analysis is showing that it would be a net gain to the transit system of about $3.556 million, nearly over double of total revenue coming into the system.
That's correct.
Okay.
But Jose, just to follow up on your question, and by looking at the previous slide, it would be a drop for Sun Metro?
Right. And so, yeah, that was going to be, so they would lose approximately $1 million currently, but there would be a total increase of $2.7 million of new money coming into the region. Is that correct as well?
Correct.
Okay, so
Sun Metro would lose out on $1 million of operating revenue that they're currently receiving, and the county would, so there'd be 2.7 million of new funding coming into the region.
And by coming into the region, you mean?
But yeah,
us.
but to potentially to us, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Right, that's correct. And that the revenue. So let me go over the additional consideration slide to kind of caveat some of the previous slide, right? Because that's a major difference, as you all are aware of federal money coming in. So the first thing we did touch on just earlier, right? The urban-rural analysis must be updated with the actual numbers and the actual geographies from the census. This, according to Sun Metro's SEP, is typically done by the MPO. So they would be the ones to calculate that out and get the actual proportion of urban areas within each service area. So in addition, EPATS must follow steps outlined in Sun Metro's SEP, the Service Expansion Policy. So there are additional steps, including, I think, passing resolution, as well as doing a new, I think, updated service plan that must essentially are part of the requirements under Sun Metro's SEP, their policy for sharing funds. So those are additional steps that must be followed and fulfilled in addition before that the split would be able to be sent. They call it a split letter, which they would send to FTA to formalize that agreement at the end of those fulfillments. Once that is achieved, EPATS will need to receive exemption from FTA to use funding for operating expenses. So right now, that funding for 5307 is largely used for capital purposes, purchases for your larger transit agencies. But since EPATS has less than 100 vehicles, they would be eligible as a small operator to use that revenue for operating expenses as well. And there are there are some limitations that apply, but again, that's those are policy considerations at the FTA level that would have to be looked at, and at the end, essentially approved by FTA for that exemption. Additional requirements for receiving the urban Section 5307 funding would be to have an update for the Title VI service plan as well. So in addition, with this 5307 money coming in and being used by EPATS, the Title VI service plan will essentially have to include analysis for fare changes or major service updates to make sure that there's not a disparate impact on minority populations or protected populations under Title VI. So that's another update that would have to be done in addition to receiving the funds. And it is TTI's recommendation that ADA paratransit services should also be in place when we start this long process of trying to secure that additional funding. And that's it for me. If there's any, I know it's a lot, so definitely if there are questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. James, you're right, it is a lot, and maybe between now and the next few weeks, I would like to personally sit down with you and really get it in my mind how you can partner with us for the funding situations that we're going to be facing. I don't know how the rest of the board feels, but it looks very enticing, very promising.
Sure.
I did have a question for staff. So, I mean, in terms of reporting, so, I mean, if this is something we want to pursue, the reporting processes that we use would change, right? We'd be submitting. So, I mean, what does that do for what does that do for like the demand on staff? Like how cumbersome of a process is to now submit to both areas, both rural or non-urbanized and urbanized?
It would be something new entirely since we've only been reporting to the rural NTD, but I believe that even if it comes to us asking other entities, how do you do this, and getting maybe some type of one-on-one to gain that knowledge. And I think there might be other resources, even possibly TTI, to help us get to that reporting with the urban NTD. I think what I was concerned about was that speaking with Jimmy at one point, it's kind of like the chicken and the egg, because we want to say that we want this funding, and in order to get the funding, we have to be reporting, but you can't really report it. I'm sorry, Jimmy, can you explain it a little bit better? Because that was when I was like, well, how do we actually start this process?
As FTA currently has it set up, and within the NTD reporting policy manual, in order for EPATs to be able to report this data, there would already have to be essentially a split letter and an agreement in place to be receiving that urban funding. So essentially, you'll need, according to FTA's policy, and this is again something that we would need to talk to, and planning staff would need to address with your FTA or NTD representative to get a very clear understanding. But it is our understanding with the current policy that an agency cannot do the urban NTD without receiving urbanized area funding. If you're only receiving FTA 5311 rural funding, you can only report to the rural NTD. So that's another hurdle. But again, if this process continues again with Sun Metro and following their SEP, that process could take place, and essentially there could be some monies coming in to EPATS from the urban side, from 5307, which would make, I guess, open the door for reporting to FTA's urban NTD.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Jimmy. Did that answer it, Jose? So I think it's, right now, Mr. Rimkus will come up and present, and so then we can discuss more on the SCP with Sun Metro. Thank you, Jimmy.
Okay, Mr. James,
Yes.
thank you. I will be reaching out to you so we can sit down and maybe get a one-on-one so I can understand it a little clearer understanding on what this is all about.
Sounds good, Mr. Chair. Yes.
Thank you. This, no action?
Okay, item number 11, presentation from Sun Metro regarding its service expansion policy and possible impact to Route 84 EPCC Mission del Paso service to Socorro, Texas.
Will it, okay. Thank you. Carl Rimkus with Sun Metro. So I don't know if this is coincidental or not, but good timing. We did, our Chief Transit Officer, Ellen Smythe, asked me to come and present and brief the board on our service expansion policy. So I do have a brief presentation, and it is germane, of course, to the presentation you've just heard from TTI. Whoops, too fast, okay. So the background on this policy is that we were approached by South Central RTD in 2021 requesting the New Mexico portion of the El Paso urbanized zone. So El Paso is kind of unique. We share it with a few other communities across the United States where the urbanized area actually crosses state lines. So it was a unique opportunity here for us to envision sharing with an entity that operates in New Mexico, although within the El Paso urbanized zone. And if you gathered this from the previous presentation, the urbanized zone really follows census data blocks. It doesn't follow jurisdictional lines very well. So you have to see the map is what it comes down to, whatever the final map is. And the MPO is the final the organization that has that map. So since this was the first time funds were being requested to be split with Sun Metro, we decided to go ahead and develop a policy so that if this came up again, there'd be an organized way to do this. SCRTD had requested to become what's called a direct recipient. So the split letter that comes out of the process potentially allows the other person receiving the other recipient receiving the FTA funds to be a direct recipient, meaning you answer and report directly to the FTA, as opposed to a subrecipient, which would mean you would come to Sun Metro, we would hold all the funds, and then you would report to us. And so Metro did not really have a desire to do that, and so we both agreed that the direct recipient path was the way to go for SCRTD. So what does service expansion means? It basically means, from Sun Metro's perspective, expanding service outside of our current service area within the urbanized zone, okay? So there are 4 methods in our policy by which this can happen. One is by joining the Sun Metro service area. So an entity outside our city limits could join our Sun Metro area and support it with the half-cent local sales tax. That's probably not something that's ever going to happen, but it is a possibility, so we have that in there. Contract, the second option is to contract for Sun Metro to provide service through an interlocal agreement. This is currently what's being done with Socorro Route 84 that goes through Socorro out to Clinton and San Elizario. Then there's the formation of a local government corporation, which is you, but that would include Sun Metro. So if we're all the same entity, then the money stays with that single entity. So we would be a part of it, so we wouldn't really be sharing it. It would be more of that cost allocation that you're currently looking at. And then there's the direct recipient for Formula 5307 FTA funding, which was discussed in the previous presentation. So in order for this to occur, then there's an agreement that will come out of the process. So the agreement has to include a proposal for service expansion. Okay, that's what do you propose? What's your proposed service going to be? That would include what type of method we're looking at. Then secondly, there would be a resolution from the governing council that has funding commitment, a record of community support, support of a regional fare structure, and acknowledgement of whatever ADA paratransit needs would be applicable in the situation. And then last but not least would be the submission of a transit development plan. So the transit development plan is a formal document. It provides recommendations for the mass transit service in the service area. It helps identify the transit service needs. And in this plan, we're looking out 3 to 5 years. Okay. It's developed in accordance with the policy. It is reviewed by Sun Metro and the MPO, and once deemed complete, would be adopted by the entity's policy making, so that would be, in this case, the board. TDP is required to cover at least 3 years of service and must be updated annually. So usually the updates are just to address any changes in the service or strategic plan. And lastly, there's a performance evaluation program that is required with the agreement, and this would basically be the entity, EPATS, having developing and maintaining a program to track progress of the proposed transit service, to evaluate system performance, quality of service, and level of customer satisfaction. So you have the plan, and then you have a program that evaluates your performance. For reference, this is what Route 84 looks like. Currently, Route 84 is services provided via an interlocal agreement between the County of El Paso and the City of El Paso, but that was developed before the SEP process was approved, which was in November 2021. So we're kind of trying to put everyone on notice that we need to now look at Route 84 as falling under some version of either service expansion or El Paso County Transit just going ahead and taking it over, or the third option, which is Socorro, could come to some arrangement independently, which is probably the least desirable in terms of if we're looking at not duplicating services across the county of El Paso. So, and that's all in the presentation, and in case anyone has any questions or comments.
Mr. Rimkus, if you can go back to the route, and if I understood you correctly, you're talking about stopping this route or turning it over to another entity?
Well, and we're not going to stop it. So there's a few options that could occur. Either we continue to service it on behalf of El Paso County Transit, but then El Paso County Transit is going to have to go through the service expansion policy. To the previous presentation, if you're looking for funding, then that would kind of go hand in glove, right? You'd be pursuing that anyway. At that point, we could continue to provide the contractual service and charge you for that service as we're doing now. It just would be under the new system, not the old interlocal.
Okay.
Nothing would change it. That would be if you want to kind of keep it the same way. But if not, then the other option is to either take it over or Socorro would do it themselves.
And I guess staff and Jose, as we move forward, I guess the board I would need some more information and what your final recommendations would be.
I believe this item is only posted for discussion, similar to the Task Order 2 urban item. I know that when we've had conversations with Sun Metro in the past, in past recent weeks, those conversations have been, how can we collaborate. The goal here is ultimately to provide a more seamless transit experience, not more divisiveness. And so introducing more complexity into the system is not ideal. And so however we can work with Sun Metro, especially in light of some of the information we saw in the last item, whether any of that additional funding could be used as consideration for partnering with the LGC, I think those are some of the conversations that we need to have as we continue to understand that. And then I think the other component now is to start involving the MPO staff on this so we can start to verify and validate some of the estimates and assumptions that were put into place by TTI so that we really do know what potential number we're looking at and can figure out how to leverage that. I know some of the items that we've discussed potentially partnering with Sun Metro on are paratransit. It's a very, very, very expensive system to operate. A lot of logistical challenges on trying to draw lines in sand about bus not going here versus where it is going. And so as we can work through that, we can certainly evaluate, I think, a few options before bringing something back to the board. I did want to ask on those same lines, what is the timeline that you have for wanting to see a decision made about Ride 84 and how the county or the LGC wants to proceed?
I don't think we have a hard timeline, but we did hope to see some progress. So I know you're going to have the conversation with Socorro and their membership, so that has to happen. But we did want to put it on the table and start the conversation. In other words, I think at some point we will come back to ask what path we're going to take, and hopefully there'll be staff discussion before that date. But we're not putting a hard deadline, but we did want to really start that conversation now that the policy's in place and that you're already considering 5307 potentially.
And I think just in terms of timing, I mean, this is a much larger and complex issue that we can't expect to make a decision on in the next few weeks, but perhaps by the July meeting, we can have enough analysis and coordination to discuss what the options may be. That'll allow us to have better understanding of what the 5307 process is, make sure that you all are involved in that process. I think that's incumbent upon us to make sure that we're being transparent and involving you every step of the way so we can figure out how to get where we want to go.
Just for Ms. Garcia's information, we, myself and Jose met with Mr. Rimkus and Ellen Smite a couple of weeks ago, and it looks promising. I've got to say that in the very possibly far future, a county-wide system that is really going to help our population tremendously. So there is no action on this item, but Carl, thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you for, I think you've been at every one of our meetings in the past.
I try.
Appreciate that.
Item number 13, update and discussion from El Paso County Transit staff regarding ongoing transit projects and issues.
Good afternoon, Board. As you see here, we have an updated ridership chart. Unfortunately, we're waiting on some of our providers to give us March's data, and so we didn't want to input any of March's without having a complete data set. It's looking interesting. I've never seen our ridership move this way, up, down, up, down, up, down. So I did go back and do a triple check to make sure that these were accurate numbers. I've asked our transit providers to double check as well. And so I'm not sure what's going on with our ridership other than normally we do see a drop in the winter, and we're seeing some of these rise while others are potentially dropping a little more. For Route 20, we did implement the we had it terminate at the new Upper East Side Transit Center, and it was originally going to Cielo Vista, the East Side Terminal. So I did see there's some of a little bit of the drop when we implemented it since January, but I'm hoping after we have Marches, we can see if that's a continued trend. Daniel, would you like to provide an update on passenger shelters?
Good afternoon, everyone. Just a general update, as I mentioned before, on the passenger shelters. We are anticipating to all re-advertise a project within the next months. Currently, we have been going back and forth with Texas Environmental as well with FDA just for the environmental clearance on that project. Plans at this moment, we're almost done with those. They were 100% submitted, but there was a small change with some recommendations by TxDOT, because just for the information of everyone, most of them are within their easement. So at this moment, we are coordinating with TxDOT just for final approval. Once we have an actual contractor on board, once after we advertise, we execute contract, then is when we will have to execute a multi-use agreement with TxDOT. And pretty much it only allows the county, now the LGC, to build those shelters within TxDOT right away. We don't have any issues that those will be approved because we already have done before previously on Horizon Boulevard. So TxDOT has been 100% support of this project. It's the current status for the phase 3 countywide passenger shelters. For the phase 1 and 2, those have been already completed. Right now, we are just working on the punch list items. Probably we may have a ribbon ceremony for those additional 5 passenger shelters.
Also, you want to talk about the Wi-Fi. When do we project it coming in?
Good afternoon, Board. The Wi-Fi project actually is going to be installed this weekend. They're going to be, the gentleman's going to be here this weekend. Hopefully everything will clear all the kinks, and we'll try to implement it by June 1st, possibly within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Oh, that's awfully good news. Wow, good.
Another amenity we could add.
Will you all be working with Barracuda on release for that?
I'm not sure if that's in their scope of work to advertise that just yet on our behalf, but I can definitely ask, and then if not, we're doing our normal put up flyers on the buses, Wi-Fi here, this is how you log in, this is the name of the network, and then we'll additionally put it on our Facebook page and just try to get it like word of mouth at this point, but I will definitely ask if that's a function that they can assist with.
And then if Barracuda, if not Barracuda, then perhaps the county's communications office?
Yes.
And then when you're branding everything, you have an opportunity to obviously let people get on to the system and then link to the Facebook page so that we can grow the numbers on that as well.
Okay, definitely. So on our task orders, we had our update earlier with task order 2 from TTI. Ongoing task orders would be task order 4, which is the contribution allocation updates to the LGC, which the scope of work included fiscal year 23 and fiscal year 25. TTI will be completing the task order within the next few weeks, and so then we'll ask them to focus on getting the fiscal year 24 contribution amounts, and we're hoping that they can get them for June, so that we can get them we can get everyone rough estimates on fiscal year 24 amounts. Additionally, both of task order 5 is ongoing, which is the implementation plan. So we would follow for services, new proposed services for fiscal year 24 and 25. What I'm going to now transition into is guidance from the board regarding the fiscal year 24 service plan, so that once we have this service plan and we're going in the right direction, TTI can get those fiscal year 24 contribution amounts based on the service plan. So just a quick update on proposed changes for fiscal year 23. We did the phase 1. In October 1st, we launched the changes to routes 30 and then new 31. And after realizing that the peak and off-peak hours wouldn't work without a dial-a-ride service in place, we made changes in November to get the level of service and alignment to, I would say, do the peak alignment all day so that we're not disservicing any of the communities. We also added Sunday service to both of those routes, and we started the Sunday service again on Route 50 as it's currently aligned. In January, as I mentioned, we did the shortening of the route to terminate at the new Upper East Side Terminal. We added Sunday service, and due to the low demand on weekends, there's 1 bus running on Saturday and Sunday. We would like to shorten or change Route 20 slightly for our riders. We've heard some concerns on the timing of the route, and so if we're able to, instead of starting the route at 5:30 at the terminal where no one's really going outbound at 5:30 from the terminal, we can start at the third stop, which is Las Casitas, and bring people into the terminal about 15 minutes earlier. And a lot of our riders have said that that would help them tremendously. So we'd like to make that change beginning June 1st.
Before we move on Route 20, can you actually go back to your previous slide?
Hold on, sorry.
So Route 20 is that red line, right?
Yes. Correct. Yes.
So, I mean, it's great to see them going up, like Route 30. I know that's good. That's like the East Lake, Mission Ridge, Agua Dulce, Horizon area.
Yes.
That's a huge drop, though. I mean, we're looking from like, what, 2250 down to 1250, so almost a drop of 1,000. Is that largely, do we have any information about why that is? Because I think anecdotally, the biggest change that route's seen in that same time has been the reduction of service directly going to Cielo Vista, right? And so is there a demand for riders on 20 to head into the city? Because if they're not taking transit here, I guess because we have the assumption that we're going to connect them to the nearest transfer center, which is the one on RC Poe. And if we do that, they'll transfer onto Sun Metro to get to Cielo Vista?
Correct. There are a few options from Sun Metro to Cielo Vista, one of them being the Brio, which runs every 15 minutes and takes approximately 30 minutes to get Cielo Vista. So with that 15-minute change, they'd get to Cielo Vista by 7:15 in the morning. I think I just want to point out that I know I see the drop. The drop begins to occur in November, and the change was made in January. So I get that, but I don't know. Generally, like I said, the winter months is when our ridership drops on all routes. So I see that it is dropping in the winter, and then additionally, we made that change in January, which is still essentially winter. So I know that it looks, I think looking at the chart, it looks worse than maybe what we're gathering the data yet, because we've only had it since January, and we're in April and want to implement this new change after hearing their concerns on timing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's like, yes, they have voiced that they would prefer to still go all the way to Cielo Vista. And I'm not sure what we can do about that based off of, since we're following the proposed changes from the study.
You're right. So the Brio leaves from the transfer center into the city, into Cielo Vista?
Yes.
Is there a stop that's closer on Montana from the Brio Center?
Yes, so instead of going all the way into the transit center, they can stop on the corner of Montana and Tierra Este, and then they would get onto the Brio there, because there's a Brio stop there.
Does our bus make that stop, or does it go?
Yes, it can make the stop as it turns, as it's coming, I would say, inbound, so we're going towards Loop 375, and we take the left onto Tierra Este. They can be dropped off at, it's the Walmart Center, and there's a safe space. There's also even the Sun Metro stop there that oftentimes they're dropped within the distance of the Sun Metro passenger shelter. But when we do execute the license agreement with Sun Metro, a part of that agreement is to use their stops, so we can actually drop them off at the Sun Metro passenger shelter stop right there.
But then they would have to pay the Brio fare.
Yes.
Right. And so right now, or not right now, but in December, a rider could go all the way from Montana Vista to Cielo Vista and only pay the county fare. But now, to get there, they're going to have to pay the city fare. But that's commensurate with what the other routes have to do. Like our user in Fabens coming to Cielo Vista has to stop at the Sleda Transfer Center and then go to there. Same thing with a rider from Horizon City.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
And so phase 3 would be that we're coordinating to implement the changes to routes 10 and 11 beginning July 1st. Without the peak and off-peak proposed changes, we would run the peak alignments, and we would start Sunday service on those routes as well. And phase 4 essentially is just Route 84 proposed changes, and subject to today's discussion, where we headed with Route 84. So moving into fiscal year '24 proposed service plan, we're planning to implement the remaining routes, 21, 40, 40X, 50, and the proposed changes to 84. Originally, it was proposed to have a flex route, or also known as deviation from where we're headed with the fixed route, to make up for that ADA compliance. We're recommending a change to no longer do the flex and to have ADA paratransit as its own service to begin calendar year 2025. Part of this reasoning was we have 90-minute headways on most of our routes currently. The proposed service changes we were looking to have 60-minute headways, but even with the changes to 3031, we were still closer to our 90-minute headways. It wasn't the estimated 60 that TTI felt we would achieve with the changes. So it felt like there would be a time constraint if we did the flex route to still remain on schedule and still move towards the goal of 60-minute or less headway. So we would like to move to just having ADA paratransit as its own service. And we are working towards, we're wondering if dial-a-ride is a hard yes for fiscal year '24 implementation plan, or if the board would like to have that implemented in fiscal year '25. And once dial-a-ride, or also known as demand response service, is in place, we can offer the peak and off-peak hours for all the routes as originally proposed. So essentially, it's just, are we doing what the board sees for fiscal year '24?
Ms. Garcia?
I was just going to ask if this recommendation from TTI is available online for the public to see, or is that not?
For the no flex? It was discussed with us during a workshop that they came out in January. And so during that timeframe, seeing just the verbal discussion on what we have our headways at and trying to maintain that schedule, it was just like we should maybe just have it as its own function. So this recommended change isn't from a report, it's just after having a workshop to discuss how we're moving forward with the implementation plan for task order 5. But to ensure that we're moving in the right direction, we're here to, let the board know how planning has moved along.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I think we have quorum today. We made some decisions procedurally that we needed to make, but I think it's probably makes sense to add this to our special session next month to allow for Vinton and San Lisario to have a voice in that process, just to ensure. But I wanted to ask if, and you may end up getting, unanimous consensus, and I think it probably makes sense for us to capture that in a motion. I know today we're just posted for discussion on this, and you're looking for general direction. But it might make sense also to post that for action, so that when if someone has a concern about the change that was made, there's a motion by the board to direct staff to start making these operational changes?
Yes.
So, but does that work with the timing that you have?
I just want to emphasize that in order for us to provide the fiscal year '24 contribution amounts, we need a service plan to have, I would say, set. So TTI needs to know what are we planning to do in fiscal year '24, and based off of that service plan, they can give the fiscal year '24 contribution amounts. So it postpones that work, I would say. So I think we should put it on the next special session for action, but it would postpone that time frame for the fiscal 24 amounts.
And so we would want to have those fiscal year 24 amounts presented to the board in July so that we can execute those agreements by October.
Yes.
And that's important for us to know as individual agencies, so we know what to put in our budgets.
Correct. And I know we're in budget season now, and it's difficult to not have those values yet, but we also need this service plan to get the values that the board needs.
Mr. Chairman, I mean, it might make sense to just kind of, I think there's probably consensus. I mean, if there is consensus, to continue to flesh this out, and then in the event that and then maybe reach out to the other board members and see if there's any, discussion, and if you feel like you continue to have, consensus from us, then at the next board meeting, you can present those values and, or make sure that we have everything, and we can take that formal action to implement those changes.
Okay.
So we're talking about our next meeting or the special meeting?
The special meeting in May.
Okay. Any other discussion? No action on this one also? Now, I see that we have executive session. That's just a placeholder, I would assume?
Yes, sir.
Is there any other business that we haven't taken care of? No? And we are adjourned, or do you need a motion?
Usually need a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
That's.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.